Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Royal Ramble podcast. I am your host, Zach Stevens, and we are here to review the episode of Raw from June 12th, 2017, out of the Cajun Dome in Louisiana. Man, as always, you can follow us on Twitter at Ramble_cast. Again, that is Ramble_cast. Of course, you can always subscribe to our YouTube page where you're going to find the highest quality episodes that we have to offer. We are also on Podbean. Check us out at royalrambleradio.podbean.com. You could, of course, always download the Podbean app on your iOS or Google Play device and find us there and listen to us on the go wherever you are. We are also on SoundCloud. Check us out over there at soundcloud.com/royal-ramble-radio. And, of course, we have an email account that you can send questions into if you'd like to get those answered on our show. And that, of course, is royalrambleradio@gmail.com. So now that that's all out of the way, man, let's talk about tonight's Raw. So, overall, I actually did enjoy this episode of Raw. Last week, I really didn't like the last episode that they put out. I thought the matches that they gave us were too short and very uneventful. They basically had no direction with those matches, and they were just kind of throwaway matches overall. Tonight, we got a little bit of that, but I feel like they actually gave us, actual matches tonight. And there's one thing that they did tonight that was super, super awesome, and I really, really enjoyed it, and it got me even more excited. So some questions for heading into tonight's Raw. Obviously, where are they going to go with the Brock and Joe feud? Last week, they got me hype with the whole Paul Heyman and Joe thing, choking him out in the Coquina Clutch. But they need to continue that and get us some more heat between these two guys. Obviously, they announced last week that Brock was going to be on this show, so we knew that was to come. We all kind of expected Joe and him to face off in tonight's episode, which they did, and of course that is what got me so excited. It was really, really cool tonight, but we'll talk about that here in a few seconds. Obviously, the next question heading into it, where is Roman, Seth, Bray, and even Balor? Where are they going for Great Balls of Fire? We didn't really get an answer last week, so maybe we'll actually learn, what direction those guys are headed in tonight. Another question I have on my mind right now is the women's division. What are they going to do with Bayley? We haven't seen her since Extreme Rules. Obviously, they are pushing that whole angle of Bayley couldn't get Extreme, and, she doesn't want to hurt anybody and all of that. So what are they actually going to do with Bayley? I've said before on previous episodes that I feel like Bayley is kind of a dead character right now, and they really need to find a way to repackage her and retool her in a way to get the crowd back on her side. Keep in mind the last time we saw her, she was getting boos from the crowd, so it's not going too well with her right now, so they obviously need to revamp that. Another question for the women's division, who is Alexa going to face now? Is Sasha finally done with that whole 205 Live, love triangle bullshit? Or is she still going to be caught up in that? Or is she, going to be off to the side like where she has been for the past couple of months? And then, of course, the final question I have for tonight's Raw is, are they going to finally give us an answer for the whole, Kurt Angle, Corey situation or the Enzo and Big Cass attacks? Are they going to advance that even more this week? Or are we actually going to finally get some answers? One of the things that I talked about was that, a lot of the times the WWE will, really build up something like this, like a big secret, like, who attacked Enzo or what's going on with Kurt, and then they drag it out way, way too long, and it ends up not paying off in the end. So I'm hoping that they do eventually end these, and give us some actual answers before they build it up too much, and we're all left being disappointed. One thing to note from tonight's show, now that I have watched it, we have no Roman on this show, no Balor on this show. So how will WWE, go about that? Usually they love to put Roman on Raw because it draws ratings from his fans, I guess. So, and obviously with Balor, we haven't seen him since Extreme Rules, if I'm remembering correctly. So it's kind of concerning that he's not on this show, but I actually think that he is in, I believe, Tokyo right now doing some media and press work for WWE up there. So that is probably why he was not on this show tonight. We did get a tease for Roman, but we'll talk about that later in the show. Essentially, they just told us that he will be making an announcement about his SummerSlam plans on the next episode of Raw next week. So a little weird that they're not really talking about his Great Balls of Fire plans right now, but they are going to be talking about his SummerSlam plans. So maybe he doesn't have a spot on Great Balls of Fire at all. We will see. So, man, let's start this show. We start off with a highlight package of the promo from last week with Joe, and obviously where he choked down Heyman and all of that. Once the highlight package is over, though, we immediately get Brock Lesnar's music, and Brock is finally here. I believe this is the first time that we've seen the Universal Belt on TV since Goldberg had it before WrestleMania. Brock and Heyman come to the ring. Heyman says he's there tonight to unleash the beast. One thing I took note of here is that we get boos for Joe and kind of a mixed reaction for Brock. And one of the questions I have heading into this big matchup between between Joe and Lesnar is who is going to be the babyface and who is going to be the heel. Personally, I'm going to be rooting for Joe in this match, even though I really, really like Brock Lesnar. My main concern right now is that Brock is a part-timer. The belt is not on TV, and I think it needs to be. With Joe, you know he is going to be there every week, and if we do put the belt on, if we put the Universal title on Samoa Joe, it's going to elevate him so much more than it would if it's Brock. Brock is always going to be a badass. He's always going to be a guy that people fear. But right now, Joe could actually use that belt. And if he beats Brock, you're talking about building up one of the biggest monsters in the WWE since Brock Lesnar or Braun Strowman. So we will see where that goes. Me personally, I'll be rooting for Joe as kind of the de facto babyface here. But, you know, to be quite honest with you, I don't think this match necessarily needs that whole babyface heel dynamic for it to work. This is two badass motherfuckers going at it in the ring, and that is what we are there to see. So eventually, Heyman says that Joe was like a shark last week, luring him into the ring and taking him out. Boos again, obviously for Samoa Joe. He says he and Brock discussed this event that happened last week, and they know that Paul probably deserved it. But that's not what this is about. This is about Brock, and now this is Brock's problem. Heyman says that he thought Joe was finally the guy to go toe-to-toe with the Beast. Man to Beast, he says. He goes out to call on Joe for his Samoan heritage, then he calls him a punk, a dog, a mutt, saying his defining moment, referring to Joe, is putting Heyman in the Coquina clutch, kind of diminishing his accomplishments so far. I mean, he did get that win at Extreme Rules, which is probably his biggest win since coming up to the main roster, but Heyman kind of saying that doesn't really matter. His biggest moment is putting Heyman in that Coquina clutch last week. He then asks what will happen when Joe puts the Coquina clutch onto his client, Brock Lesnar. Brock Lesnar starts to laugh at the mere mention of this, thinking how ridiculous it is that he would be put into the Coquina clutch. Heyman then says he realized that Joe will never get the Coquina clutch on Lesnar because he isn't man enough. Heyman starts to talk a little bit more, and then Joe's music hits. We get huge Joe chants here. Brock is in the ring. Heyman exits immediately, obviously scared that Joe's going to get him in the clutch again. Joe stands at the bottom of the ring, and Brock tells him to get in and come at him. So Joe obliges. He hops into the ring, and then we get that epic stare-off that we usually get, kind of similar to how we had Brock and The Undertaker a few years ago. We get the stare-off between Joe and Brock, and man, the intensity between these two guys is super, super awesome. Obviously, this stare-down does not last long before the brawl begins. Joe strikes first. And they go at it, man. This was an intense brawl, and you can really tell that these guys are taking legitimate shots at each other. This is completely strong style. When I'm watching this, I'm like, holy fuck, man, this is a legit fight. I mean, obviously it's not UFC levels of a fight, you know, they aren't punching each other square in the jaw, but it feels like that, and that's what's so important about the matchup between these two guys. They are two legitimate fighters. They bring a legit fight feel to this card. And this brawl gave us a tease of what we can really expect at the pay-per-view. And man, if these guys can put on this sort of intensity at that pay-per-view, to be quite honest with you, I think it's going to be even more intense than what we saw tonight. But tonight was pretty awesome. So if they can bring that same intensity over to the Great Balls of Fire pay-per-view, man, we are in for a match, I tell you what. You know, this build-up was really good tonight. I got chills from watching this. Definitely go back and check this out if you have the time, man. I'm sure it's on their YouTube page, WWE's YouTube page, if I could talk correctly. So yeah, definitely go check that out. Anyway, eventually they bring out security to try and break these two guys up. Brock Lesnar says fuck no to one of the security guards and clotheslines him into oblivion. Just completely took this guy out. It was awesome. Then Kurt Angle has to come out, and he calls for the entire locker room to come out and separate these guys because obviously security guards are not going to get the job done between the two biggest badasses on the roster. The roster comes out. They finally do break these two guys up, but Joe breaks away from his half of the roster that's holding him back, and he runs up to Lesnar and kicks him square in the jaw. Brock just hits the deck here. He is out cold. It looks so good. Joe then rolls to the outside of the ring. He's being escorted by his half of the locker room. Then Brock breaks away from his and chases Joe down. Then Brock jumps in onto Joe on the ramp, gets a few more shots into Joe, and then we end this segment with "This is awesome" and "Let them fight" chants. Man, this was just so intense. That is the word that I keep using, but that's the best word to describe this. These two guys were going at it legitimately, and I cannot wait to see them in the ring, man. I feel like they are going to try and kill each other when they finally have their match, so I cannot wait for this. This was a great way to start off Raw, and it answered my main question right off the top. They gave us a tiny taste of what's to come when these two guys go head-to-head in Dallas, but man, I just cannot wait to see this main event match. It is going to be awesome. Like I said earlier, it probably doesn't matter who's the face or who's the heel here. Personally, like I said, I love Brock. I love watching him, but I want the title on TV. So, letting Brock win here and having him off TV for another half of a year, it just does nothing for me. So I'm really rooting for Joe here, and I honestly, I think that he's going to have the smart crowd behind him because they obviously are going to feel the same way that I do. They obviously want the belt to be on TV. They don't want it to be in the hands of a part-timer, so I feel like the crowd is really going to be behind Joe here. But either way, this match is going to be awesome, and it's going to be a legit fucking fight. I just can't wait. So good job by the WWE here to get me even more pumped. I know that I don't think Brock is on Raw next week, but he will be on the week after that, so we will at least get one more segment between these two guys. And I just hope that they can bring that same passion that they did tonight for the next appearance that we get out of them. So obviously, good start to Raw, but the one thing I was thinking personally was, WWE gave me exactly what I wanted in that opening segment, so that probably means that the rest of the episode is going to be all downhill from here. But we'll see. So the next segment we get is Elias Sampson in the middle of the ring. Massive boos when JoJo announces his name. He goes on to say, "Hello, I'm Elias Sampson." We get more boos. Then he says, "I said, hello, I am Elias Sampson," and we get even louder boos. So really good stuff by Elias there. I don't know if that was an improv line or if someone told him to do that, but really good way to get even more heat than he already is. He starts his song. I did transcribe this for my loyal listeners because obviously this is the type of fantastic journalism that you can expect from the Royal Ramble podcast. Such dedication for me, I must say. Just kidding. Anyway, this is what his song said. It said, "Louisiana is the laughingstock of the good old USA. The Cajuns should be caged up, and I can't wait to get away. Now on to Ambrose. I feel like I've been cursed. This man won't leave me alone, and I'll tell you what's worse. Every time the lunatic meets me, he ends up in a pile of flesh. But what's to be expected from the man who lives in darkness?" Then Ambrose music hits. Obviously, still going with the same gimmick. I think Elias Sampson is getting a lot of legitimate heat here. People seem to really want to boo this guy, so it is working. So the first match of the night we get, man, is Ambrose versus Elias Sampson. One thing I took note here is that they don't use the term drifter anymore, so I guess he is just Elias Sampson from now on. So completely dropping that drifter nickname. So they show highlights from last week when The Miz destroyed that giant gift that Maurice gave him, which ended up being a recurring sort of theme here throughout this episode that we'll talk about later. But we start off this match and we surprisingly get Ambrose chants. Everyone's saying Ambrose, Ambrose, which is quite surprising because Ambrose really hasn't been that over lately. A lot of people really knocking him for his in-ring work, saying he's just become a boring character. But this crowd, man, in Louisiana, they were behind Ambrose all the way, so good on them. Both of these guys start the match with a lockup in the corner of the ring. Ambrose hits a spinning elbow as Cole reminds us that everyone that, it reminds everyone that Ambrose has this unorthodox style, which I hate that term. We then head to commercial. We come back and Ambrose is still in control. Elias then reverses it and hits Ambrose with a clothesline and gets a near fall onto Dean. Elias has some nice strikes here. I'm really liking his intensity in the ring. He really hasn't shown much of his actual moves in this match so far, or, pretty much in any match that he's done, but I kind of like his style, man. It's more of a brawler. It's not really going to do any, big high-flying spots or anything like that. It's just, I'm here to punch you and kick your ass, basically. We start getting "you suck" chants directed at Elias. Elias then gets Dean in a chokehold on the mat for a very long time here. Felt like forever that this was going on. And then Dean eventually breaks out by slamming Elias onto his back. We get a "you can't sing, you can't wrestle" battling chant from this Louisiana crowd, so I thought that was pretty funny. Even though I think Elias Sampson can wrestle. Obviously he hasn't shown too much in the ring yet, but I think this guy is going to be pretty good when it's all said and done, so we'll see. Elias and Dean start trading chops, and then Dean has had enough. He delivers this typical Dean Ambrose offense with a bunch of clotheslines, bouncing back and forth from each rope. Dean then hits a fisherman suplex for a near fall. He goes for a running bulldog, but then Elias hits him with a boot to the face as he's running towards him. Elias gets sent to the outside of the ring, and Dean sets up to hit a suicide dive. Dean gets Sampson back into the ring after the suicide dive, heads to the top rope, but Elias then takes control of him. Elias is looking for the superplex, but Dean is able to counter it. Dean then hits him with a series of headbutts at the top of the post, and they set up for the finish, but then The Miz comes out of the locker room out of nowhere. Miz tries to distract Dean, but it fails. Elias then rolls up Dean but he only gets a 2 count off of the roll-up. Dean then hits Elias with a clothesline, knocks him out. Then Dean sets his sights onto The Miz, so he hops out of the ring and starts chasing down The Miz. Miz grabs Maurice and uses her as a shield like he always does. Dean then eventually grabs The Miz and throws him into the barricade. All this time, the ref has been counting, so he's been counting all the way up, and he gets to a count of 9. Dean realizes this, and he hops back into the ring at the last second. But as soon as he's getting back into the ring, Elias is able to jump onto him knee first, which is kind of a weird move, but man, it looked pretty vicious, man. This looked like it hurt. He basically just jumped on him with his knees bent and just landed onto his back. Then he picks up Dean, he hits the swinging neck breaker onto Ambrose, gets the pin, 1, 2, 3, and Elias Sampson wins. Not necessarily clean because there was the distraction from Ambrose, but Elias does get another win onto Dean Ambrose. So, I have said before that I am not liking the fact that we're getting another Ambrose-Miz match, but I kind of actually like this build here, and the way this match was booked, it kept me entertained. I thought that they were going to go with the count out originally whenever the ref got to the count of 9. I thought, okay, this is where it'll end. That's how Elias Sampson will win, but no, man, they let Elias actually get his finisher off and pin Dean Ambrose in the middle of the ring, so, like I said, I'm not excited to see Dean versus Miz again, but I think they're doing a decent job at building it up for the 9,000th time. However, I still think that we are going to get a triple threat match at Great Balls of Fire, and I think it will be Miz versus Ambrose versus Elias. They keep putting Ambrose and Elias in matches together on TV, and meanwhile, they're still building up Miz versus Ambrose. So I think in the end, we're going to get all 3 of these guys at the next pay-per-view. So we close this segment with Cole telling us that we're getting a 2 out of 3 falls match between, wait for it, Sheamus and Cesaro and the Hardy Boys. This will be for the tag team titles, so I guess that'll get me a little bit more interested, but God, like I've said it before on all the previous episodes that we've done so far of the Royal Ramble podcast, I am so sick of seeing these 2 teams go together. I cannot take it anymore. Obviously, Matt Hardy had a baby over the weekend, so congrats to Matt Hardy. But simply put, I just cannot stand seeing these 2 teams go at it. Next up, we get a Goldust promo. It basically just says the same stuff that, we've been hearing for the past 3 weeks. I know a lot of people are really liking these Goldust and R-Truth promos. I do like that they're not spending a whole lot of time on them. My main problem, though, is that it's just building up towards a Goldust R-Truth match, and I'm just not excited to see that match, guys. I just don't really care about it. So it's just one of those things where, I like these promos that they're doing, but what we're going to get in the end is not going to be worth the time that they're putting into this right now. So that's just my thought on it. Anyway, he just basically says that, even though R-Truth thought they were friends, they never really were, because Goldust is different, and he made him feel uncomfortable. So, really pulling up or playing off of that really weird Goldust sort of attitude, which is cool, but like I said, just not interested in this match whatsoever. Anyway, we get Miz and Kurt Angle backstage. This segment was very weird. I'll talk about why. It lacked continuity and really didn't make sense in the end here. Angle is pissed off at Miz, obviously, for interrupting that match against Elias Sampson and The Miz that just happened. Miz says Ambrose is lucky that's all that happened tonight. Miz says Maurice is still upset about the grandfather clock that he broke. Then Miz goes in for a kiss on Maurice, but she turns her head away, not kissing him back. Obviously teasing some tension there, and I really like it. I'm starting to wonder if they are actually going to make an actual story out of this, or if it's just going to be a small little hiccup in their relationship. Angle goes on to say that that's not his problem. Miz says that the only reason this happened is because Angle was preoccupied with his personal problems. Obviously referring to last week where Angle's on the phone and he leaves the stadium and Dean Ambrose enters through the open door. He's basically blaming Angle for Ambrose, breaking that grandfather clock essentially. Miz goes on to say that he needs to suspend or fire Ambrose. Some people in the crowd started cheering. Kurt yells at The Miz, telling him to never speak to him that way again. Then, this is where this segment falls apart for me. Angle then says he's going to do nothing, because if The Miz wants something to be done about Dean Ambrose, he should do it himself. Which, wait a second, didn't he just do that? Isn't that why you came up and confronted him? Because he actually did something for himself? I mean, he obviously interrupted that Ambrose match because of what happened last week, and here you have Kurt saying, hey, what's your deal? Why did you do that? Oh, I'm not going to do anything about it. You should do something about it. Well, Kurt, he just fucking did something about it. So this whole thing just fell apart. It didn't make sense to me. He just interrupted this match. Why are you telling him to go do something again when he already did it? Really illogical stuff here, but obviously I got the message that they're trying to send. It just didn't make any sense. All right, so here's where we go into the Cruiserweight match. It's going to be Cedric Alexander. We get a cool highlight package of Alexander. We really haven't seen one of these for the Cruiserweight since the CWC. I know they've done a few of them here and there, but I really think they should have done more of these for these guys to get them over. Cedric Alexander is a badass in the ring, so it's really cool to see them try to repackage him a little bit after coming off his injury. He has been off TV for a little bit, so it's cool that they're trying to give him a little bit of a push. We get a backstage segment here where it's Cedric and Noam Dar. He tells Dar that he is done fighting him and is done with his ratchet ex-girlfriend, Alicia Fox. All this time, though, Dar is on FaceTime with Alicia Fox, and she hears what Cedric says about her, calling her a ratchet ex-girlfriend. Alicia goes on to say that she basically wants Dar to kick his ass tonight, and I guess that's the match we're going to get. So what I'm thinking here is, yes, please get Cedric away from that 205 Live love story that seems to bury everyone that it touches. It should be noted here that even people, even they tried to get excitement with that little highlight package for Cedric, no one really got excited for this at all. When Cedric came onto the screen after they showed that highlight package, they expect there to be a cheer or something. He's waiting for a reaction there, and it's just dead silent, man. You could hear a pin drop when that started. Also, when he comes out to the ring and when Noam Dar comes out to the ring for the match that we're about to get. Very quiet crowd here. No one really buying into the Cruiserweights here in Louisiana. This match was absolutely horrible. This was easily the worst segment on Raw tonight. And I'll tell you why. So Cedric comes out. Okay, no big pop for him. But when Dar comes out, he still has Alicia Fox on the phone. She's still doing FaceTime with her. She's basically saying, I want to be left on the phone. I want to watch this happen, which why couldn't she just watch Raw on TV? Anyway, her voice is playing over the arena speakers, and we also get to see the FaceTime feed on the big screen. So kind of like how Tyler Breeze used to do his FaceTime or, his selfie stick kind of intro where we would see his face on the screen. We're getting that for Alicia Fox here. But oh my God, Alicia Fox's voice is so fucking loud. It's louder than anything in this stadium. It's louder than the music for their intros. It's louder than the commentators. It's louder than everything. And she is screaming with this high-pitched, like, nails on a chalkboard voice. And good God, it was so annoying. I just couldn't take it, man. She was screaming the whole match. Basically, Dar is on the phone with her. She's arguing and screaming at him. And he's like trying to tell her bye, I need to go wrestle this match, but she's staying on the phone. This whole segment goes on for way, way, way too long. As soon as the match finally starts, Cedric immediately hits a lumbar check onto Dar, and it's GG. 1, 2, 3, Cedric wins clean. I get what they're doing here, but oh my god, Alicia Fox was so annoying here. She was louder than anything I've ever heard on this show before. It really got under my skin, man. It was just too loud, too annoying. I literally had to mute the TV because it was that bad. Her voice was just ungodly fucking loud, and they needed to end this segment yesterday. Totally unacceptable. Completely burying the cruiserweights yet again with this whole Alicia Fox no MDR bullshit. This has got to stop, guys. We have to stop this. Anyway, we go on to the next part of the show. It's a Bray Wyatt promo. This is where we get the mention that Roman will be on Raw next week to announce his SummerSlam plans, which, like I said, I thought was really weird because I'm expecting Roman to be on that Great Balls of Fire card, but as of right now, man, it seems like he is not in the plans for that next pay-per-view, so very weird. Bray comes out to the ring after a short promo that made zero sense. He comes out with a very, very long intro. This is one complaint that I especially have about Bray Wyatt, is that his entrance takes too fucking long. You are not The Undertaker, bro. You are basically a glorified jobber at this point. You never win. You do not deserve this long, laid-out intro. Just get to the fucking ring and do what you're going to do, alright? Quit wasting our time. Bray goes on to say that people will pay for their guilt. He's going super heavy into that weird religious preacher gimmick that he always does. He ends up mentioning Seth Rollins, and then all of a sudden, I know where they're going. We're going to get Seth versus Bray at Great Balls of Fire. Obviously, last week, the ending match between Joe and Seth, it was interrupted by Bray. The lights go out, but Bray doesn't show up, and that's kind of why Seth lost. Really stupid ending, by the way. He eventually says that, Seth will be picking shards of glass from his soul for eternity because of his judgment. Whatever the fuck that means. He says his ignorance has painted a vivid picture of a law that we will learn to all live by. He says, if you take my name in vain, you will fall. I don't really remember Seth calling him any names. They eventually remind us what he said, basically calling him, a false prophet and all this other shit. But I'm just really not understanding why this match is happening at all. Even though they're building it up as a match that is probably going to be taking place at the next pay-per-view. Anyway, Cole says that it seems Bray has developed some sort of obsession with this man, confirming basically what I thought, that, this is just a random-ass combination of guys that they're throwing together to fill out the pay-per-view card. Seth comes out to the ring, obviously, and he's as confused as the rest of us. He goes on to say that when I called you a false prophet, that wasn't blasphemy, it's the truth. Seth says people that drink too much of their own Kool-Aid don't like the truth because it forces them to see the light, but Bray likes to hide in the shadows and live in the darkness. Seth ends up calling Bray a coward for this. He says he's face-to-face right now, he's man-to-man, and he dares Bray to prove him wrong. Bray starts laughing maniacally. He goes on to say that Seth is oozing arrogance, and that when he looks at his reflection in the mirror, he sees the man, but all Bray sees is a man beneath him. Bray goes on to say he doesn't want this fight, saying his power is more than Seth can fathom, which I'm thinking to myself, what the hell are you even talking about? You've won like one match in the past year. I don't think anyone is afraid of Bray Wyatt at this point. Then the lights go out. Typical Bray Wyatt bullshit. The lights come back on. Bray is teleported out of the ring. Seth looks stupid. He's looking around aimlessly like, oh God, where did he go? Where did he go? And then Bray shows up on the Jumbotron. He finishes his promo saying a God lives forever and starts laughing. He then tells Seth to face his fear and run. And that's the end of that segment, man. So a typical Bray Wyatt promo, man. If you've seen it once, you've seen them all. Like I said, I don't really get this match. I mean, I know why we're getting it, because they have to fill out the card with something. But I just don't understand why this feud is taking place, all because Seth called him a false prophet. Like, big fucking deal, bro. You should be more concerned about winning an actual match than you should be about what someone says about you. It is completely stupid. Anyway, Seth will end up destroying Bray again at Great Balls of Fire. I know that for a fact. That is easy win for Seth. Bray is a dead character right now. Cannot take him seriously. His words don't have any meaning when he doesn't actually back them up in the ring. If you're going to go out there every week and give these super impassioned, super, vicious promos, and then you just go lose, I don't give a fuck what you say in your promo. You just lose. That's all you do. So I just don't care. I don't care. Anyway, We get a backstage interview with the Hardy Boys here. This made me sad in a way, and we'll talk about that. But Matt says that they have a daunting task in front of them, saying Sheamus and Cesaro are the most physical tag team that they've ever been in the ring with, which is arguable. Hardy's going to say that they've proven that they had their number, referring to Sheamus and Cesaro as a tag team. And if they need to do it 2 out of 3 times tonight, they will. Matt goes on to say that they may believe that they're the bar, but then Jeff says they are going to break that bar. Now, when he says break, Matt's face kind of changes a little bit. It's a very, very subtle hint, but this is what made me sad, man. We got really no broken mentions at all. I mean, you could call that a slight, subtle hint, but really we didn't get any of the usual hints that he used to give us. He used to, do the broken character voice every once in a while in his WWE promos, but now he doesn't do that at all anymore. I'm really starting to wonder if the whole litigation between the broken character and TNA and all that stuff has really scared him off from even teasing that character. This promo that they gave right here, this is what made me feel sad, is that it sounded like a typical written promo from the writers, and they were basically gave it to the Hardy Boys and said, you read this line for line tonight. And that's what makes me sad, man. You have 2 of the most talented guys in this industry, and they're having to read these bullshit promos that the writing staff come up with. I really think these guys could come up with something a little better than this on their own, and I really wish that WWE would let them do that. There is one thing to take note here. There was an interview with the Hardys and Corey Graves on, I'm not sure what show it was, but it was obviously a WWE Network segment. And they basically say that there is a current litigation going on, which obviously we knew about that. But he ends up saying that he is confident that the broken gimmick will come to WWE. He says it's not if, but when it comes back, it will keep the WWE universe guessing. So obviously Matt feels confident that they are going to get the broken characters here to the main roster, or the main product, I should say. But man, these current promos that they do, they just have no soul at all. It's just a boring, lifeless promo, and it's very sad to see what these guys are becoming without their broken gimmick. I really hope the WWE and Matt and TNA and all these guys can come up with a resolution fast, because, good God, man, don't kill these characters after bringing them back up, man. You got to find a way to get the broken characters onto Raw. Anyway, we get our next match. It's going to be Kalisto versus Apollo Crews. So they're continuing this whole Titus brand and, this whole feud that's going on between Kalisto and Apollo Crews. I did have one kind of funny thought here. You know how Sami Zayn and KO are destined to fight each other? They always say how they're, always going to be in the ring together no matter what. I'm starting to feel like that for Apollo and Kalisto. I'm feeling the same way about them, because they seem to always, constantly be paired together. Whether they're friends or foes, they're always paired up. So maybe Apollo and Kalisto are the new KO and Sami Zayn. Who knows, right? Anyway, Akira Tozawa is in the front row because, obviously, like last week, they teased a little bit that Titus is trying to sign him to the Titus brand. Originally I'm thinking, well, man, is Akira Tozawa getting called up to the main roster? Is this kind of a main roster push for him? But no, they clear that up later in the show. Kalisto and Apollo start the match really hot, actually. These guys had a really good match on the pre-show for Extreme Rules that I really liked. And I really like these 2 guys in the ring. So I'm not complaining that we got a match between them. I'm not really buying this story right now. Anyway, it starts off really hot. We get a beautiful spinning head scissor kick from Kalisto. Apollo has a snap suplex and get a series of near falls onto Kalisto. Meanwhile, Titus is on the outside of the ring, dressed up in his full suit like always, and he's talking to Akira Tozawa on the outside. Tozawa is kind of ignoring him. He even puts his hands over his ears, showing that he's not listening to Titus or what he has to say. Apollo has Kalisto in a face lock on the mat. Then Apollo starts gloating in the ring. He smiles and points to his signature smile. Kind of, I've said before that that's kind of his only character, is that he smiles. So, hey, I guess it's good that he's actually playing into that a little bit. Kalisto eventually reverses the momentum and he takes the offense to a Cruz. He gets a lucha chant going, bounces off the ropes, but Cruz catches him in a sit-up powerbomb and pins Kalisto clean. 1, 2, 3. Then Titus goes on to grab Tozawa from basically the front row and throws him into the ring. Akira looks super confused at this point, but him and Titus and Apollo, I should say, bust out their phones and start taking selfies with him included. It's really selling this idea that Akira Tozawa really isn't having it but he's still getting included anyway. Similar to how Apollo Crews got put into the Titus brand. He really wasn't feeling Titus at first, and then all of a sudden he is with him. So I'm wondering if that's the same kind of direction that will go with Akira Tozawa. This was a decent match, even though it was short. Obviously, both of these guys are incredible in the ring, so it's always a treat to see them go at it. The one thing I do like about this, though, is that, I've said it previously on our other Raw episodes, or just when we're talking about the cruiserweights in general, that I really wish they would mix the cruiserweights with the main roster. That way they don't feel like such a separate entity from, from Raw, basically. Right now they kind of treat the cruiserweights as a sideshow, but having them actually be integrated with some of the characters from the main roster, I think that really helps. So I'm glad that they're finally starting to do this. They've obviously shown this with Sasha Banks and obviously now with Akira Tozawa. So I'm hoping that they do that more with other characters, and maybe it'll get the cruiserweights over a little bit more and make them seem a little bit more legitimate. Anyway, we head backstage, and we have Heath and Rhino. They're both back there eating Cheese Whiz on a bunch of crackers. And then The Miz comes in. The Miz says that he has a life-changing opportunity for Slater. Not for Rhino, but for Slater. Miz says that Angle has done a horrible job at showing off the talents that he possesses. Miz has an exclusive invitation for Heath Slater to join his entourage. Rhino then interrupts. He says that he already has a partner, but Miz says that he wasn't talking to Rhino. Heath says that that before he had kids, he was a kid, and the only thing that he wanted as a kid was the Intercontinental Championship. So obviously teasing a little bit of maybe a possible feud between Slater and Miz, which I'm actually kind of for. I would like to see that a little bit. I definitely want to see it more than Ambrose and the Miz for the 9,000th time. So anything that we get a new challenger for this belt would be good, I would say. Anyway, Miz goes on to say, would you rather be eating Cheese Whiz with a loser or eating caviar with A-listers? Slater goes on to ask him, what's caviar? And then Rhino says, Miz better find a tag team partner because he is going to go find Angle and demand a match tonight. We end the segment with Rhino stuffing Cheese Whiz and crackers into his mouth, making a huge mess. Overall, for this little tease, I did like the tease of Heath getting a title shot. I think that would be cool. Anything to get us away from Dean and Miz for the millionth time is a plus. But this ended up kind of being nothing. But we'll see where they go in the future with this. Next segment, we have Alexa Bliss. She comes out to the ring. They end up showing highlights of last week's match, in quotes, with her and Nia Jax. Bliss reminds everyone that she beat Bayley at Extreme Rules and retained her title. But instead of having a celebration, Kurt Angle forced her to defend her match, or to defend her title against Nia Jax. Alexa mentions that the Money in the Bank match is this Sunday, but then says that's Sunday and this is Monday. And then Nia's music hits. Nia comes out and gets in Alexa's face, saying that she promised her that title match. She wasn't forced by Kurt Angle to do it. Alexa obviously backing up. She's scared of Nia Jax, definitely playing that up. She starts saying that she wants to have a match that everyone will go back on the WWE Network to watch. She wants to, her excuse is that she wants to have this epic match with Nia Jax. But then Dana Brooke and Mickie James come out. Mickie James calls Alexa a dwarf. Mickie reminds everyone that she's a 6-time champion, telling Alexa she has a long way to go. Dana reminds Alexa what she said last week when she said that we have a Nia Jax problem. Obviously, Nia is like, well, hey, I thought you wanted to give me this match. What's the deal here? They go on to argue, about who said what, blah, blah, blah. This whole segment was kind of falling apart for me. Then Emma's music hits. So we get to hear that GOAT theme. Emma goes on to say, attention people, you can put that spotlight right here where it belongs because Emma is back. Emma starts challenging Alexa for a title shot, which I would like to see, by the way. Then Alexa shifts blame to all three of the women, and then Sasha's music hits. She comes out. She basically says, Alexa, you have it all twisted. We get huge Sasha chants, which is kind of weird, right? Because she really hasn't been on TV for a while, and she was kind of buried with that whole 205 Live segment for a while. But we're getting these huge Sasha chants. So she was easily one of the most over people on this roster tonight. But what's really weird is that she actually calms the crowd down. So they're all chanting her name, and she all of a sudden goes, "Excuse me, everyone, calm down for a second. I need to talk to Alexa." So it was kind of somewhat heelish. It was very weird for her to quiet the crowd after they were really behind her. Banks goes on to say that Alexa just comes out here every week and yaps her mouth. She says that since Alexa wants to throw a party, she will show her how, and then hits her in the face with the mic. We get a huge brawl between all of the women here, and obviously, guess what? We're heading to a not a mixed tag team match, but we're getting a 3v3 tag match between all of the women, just like they do on SmackDown. This was really not a match that we need to go over. I'm glad that Emma is back. We obviously need some new blood in this division. I just really hope that they aren't going to stick her with Dana Brooke again, because Dana Brooke really needs to advance her offensive game a little bit. I think we need to find some new opponents for Emma. I would definitely like to see Emma versus Alexa at some point. The one thing to take note from this match, though, is that at the end, Alexa, they were going to tag in Alexa. She gets off and basically says, "No, I'm not taking the tag," and walks away. So abandons her team, essentially. Then Emma tries to get a quick roll-up on Sasha. Sasha then reverses that roll-up into the bank statement, which was a really nice transition. Very good. I loved it. And then Emma has to tap out. So Emma comes back, and she's immediately tapping out. So that's not good. But the one thing that they did here was that they subtly hinted at the Sasha-Alexa match. So after Sasha gets the tap out on Emma, she stands up and starts staring down Alexa, who is at the top of the ramp. And these two are obviously staring each other down. They are teasing at the match that we all want to see. I just don't know if they're actually going to give that to us or not. We will see. It'll be very cool if we do, though. This is when we get a cool highlight package for Balor. I really love these. They're put together very well, and they really help get guys over. Even though Balor is obviously already over, it's just nice that they still do these for guys from time to time. And this was the only appearance of Balor that we got tonight. He was not on this show. Like I said, I think he is in Asia doing some, promo work over there. But we did not get Balor on this show or Roman. So anyway, we get a Corey and Bayley interview. So this is the first time we've seen Bayley since Extreme Rules as well. This is a pre-recorded backstage, sit-down interview. Corey goes on to ask her about her loss to Alexa in the kendo stick match. Corey asks her about not getting extreme in that match, which is the whole angle that they're pushing there. Bayley goes on to say that she's never been in a situation like that before. She says she isn't here to put bruises on people's back. She's here to put smiles on faces. Aww. First of all, no, she's not. She's there to kick someone's ass and take the championship. If Bayley wasn't there to put bruises on people's back, then what the hell was she doing when she faced off against Asuka in NXT? What about those epic matches that she put on with Sasha? Or what about the matches she put on with Nia Jax? I mean, all of those were epic brawl, those were epic fights. She put bruises on people's backs. So it just kind of goes to show where they've taken this character on the main roster and how far away they've come from her NXT character. Corey goes on to smartly say how that mentality of hers, not wanting to hurt someone, isn't going to help her in the ring against the likes of Bliss or Jax. Bayley then says that she's here to be 100% herself. She says she won't change who she is. She will do what's best for her. She's going to be Bayley. Corey asks what's next for her, and she says that she still wants to be the best. That hasn't changed. She wants to recapture the title and come back to Louisiana, which is where WrestleMania is this year, I guess. And she says that she wants to come back to Louisiana as champion. Bayley then asks Corey if they can end the segment with a hug, and the whole fucking world cringes at once. They go in for the hug. Corey then eases the tension hugely here by saying, "Now I need a cigarette," which was a hilarious line by Corey. Wasn't expected. But God, Bayley looks so weak and pathetic here, man. She's just not doing it for me, guys. I hate to say it, but I kind of hate Bayley now. And it's not anything that Bayley has done. It's all about the creative direction that they're pushing her. Every time I see her on TV or anytime she comes out, I'm just over it, man. And that's not a good sign. Like I said, man, last time we saw her come to the ring, she got boos. And that is not what the WWE wants for the female John Cena. They basically took one aspect of her character from NXT, which is the whole, "Oh, I'm a hugger" thing. And that's all she is. She's a one-dimensional character on the main roster, to whereas on NXT, the hugging thing was kind of just a side thing. It wasn't the main push of this character. It wasn't the main gimmick for this character. it was just a little side thing that she did, right? But now that she's on the main roster, this is the only aspect that they focus on. And it makes her one-dimensional, and that's all she does. That isn't the Bayley from NXT. I don't know what that is, so they've got to find a way to fix it. Anyway, we go on to the next match. We get Heath Slater and Rhino versus Miz and... well, we don't know yet. Obviously, Rhino told him that he's going to have to find a tag partner, and obviously Rhino did go to Angle and get this match certified and got it going. So, one thing to note here, so Rhino and Heath Slater come out to the ring, then Miz comes out. You know how Miz always goes in for that kiss on Maurice? Well, guess what? She turns her head again, obviously denying the kiss again. Then when they get to the ring and they try to do it again, she denies him as well. So, is it a subtle story tease here, or is it just going to be a temporary feud between husband and wife that'll eventually boil over? I don't know, but I'm interested that they're doing this, and I'm liking these subtle teases that they do each week, whether it be the, Corey and Kurt thing, or the Enzo attacks, or now this. It's a slow, subtle tease that they will build up over the weeks and eventually give us an answer. I don't know if this one is necessarily going anywhere, but we will see. Anyway, we're basically wondering who's going to be the Miz's partner. And, well, guess what? You guys remember that bear? The guy in the bear costume from last week? That's his partner for this match. He comes out on a tiny bike riding to the ring. He ends up falling off of the bike like a dumbass. He has a complete theme song that sounds like something you hear from an ice cream truck coming down the street. The match starts and we start getting bear chants. Now, immediately I'm thinking, man, this is going to be some cringy-ass shit. What am I looking at here? It's a man in a bear costume about to wrestle on TV. But this match actually worked for me. I don't know if I'm in the minority with this or not, man, but it got a chuckle out of me, so whatever. Slater goes up for a quick roll-up on The Miz, who is distracted by the bear, but The Miz kicks out in 2. We get "We Want Bear" chants, which I thought was funny. Rhino gets to tag for a short period, but then he tags back in Heath. Miz is able to turn it around on Slater, but he eventually needs to tag because Miz has been taking all the beatdown so far. He's reluctant to tag in the bear, so the bear tags himself in. And then Cole goes on to make a bunch of bear puns, saying he's barely legal. And then he goes on to say that this match has been unbearable. Well, the bear starts slapping Heath. Heath is kind of astonished at this, that the bear is actually fighting him. But then the bear gets Heath into a bear hug, which I'm guessing is the bear's finishing move. I don't know, but gets him into the bear hug. The crowd kind of gets really hyped for this. I got a little excited for it too. I thought it was funny, and this is just kind of a fun little thing. Rhino then breaks up the bear hug hold, and then the bear tags the Miz back in, but the Miz then attacks the bear on the outside of the ring. He throws the bear into the barricade. Wait, hold on. They missed a pun here. The barricade? The barricade, get it? Okay, sorry. Anyways, Miz starts thinking it's Ambrose as the bear like he did last week, obviously playing up that whole paranoid angle. He unmasks the bear, and, of course, it's just a random guy. Heath then hits Miz with a boot to the face. Then the bear rolls back into the ring, but he's obviously selling, man. He's in pain from, the Miz beat down and getting beat down by Rhino and Heath. Slater then tries to help the bear up, but then Heath gets hit with the dirty deeds. So obviously Dean is in a bear costume. So I guess Dean was hiding under the ring, in his own bear costume and was just waiting for this moment to arise, which I don't know how he would have known that this was going to happen, but obviously we shouldn't think about that. Dean then takes his mask off. He dives at the Miz, who bounces back into Maurice. She hits the ground. She's pissed. She walks to the locker room. Miz is obviously distraught. He's showing that he's upset for, running in and hitting his wife. Obviously, things are not going well for them. Then Dean hits Miz with the dirty deeds in the bear costume. He throws Heath on top of Miz, and Heath and Rhino get the win over the Miz. Like I said originally, I thought that when that bear guy came out, guy in a full bear costume, I was expecting nothing but massive cringe, especially coming from WWE, because that is what they typically do. They consistently deliver us cringe on TV. But in the end, man, I thought this was actually pretty hilarious, and it was done decently well. So I'm liking these teases that they're doing with the possible Miz and Maurice breakup. I don't know if that's necessarily where they're going to go with that, but it's interesting that they tease that a lot tonight, so we'll see. Anyway, the segment ends with Dean putting the bear mask onto Miz as he's out cold. We get a cruiserweight match next. Well, not a match. It's Swan versus Neville. Swan comes out to the ring and he's doing his usual dancing, but then Neville sneak attacks Swan during his dancing and just destroys him. Throws him into the barricade, stomping him on the outside. Neville then throws him back into the ring and puts the Ring of Saturn on Swan. Swan is just out cold at this point. The crowd is booing. Then Neville screams and asks for a mic. He says, "Austin Aries, TJP, and now Rich Swann, get out of my ring. It feels good to be the king." He goes on to ask how many people he has to obliterate before he gets the respect of the people. He goes on to talk about some tweet that I guess Titus sent out saying that Akira Tozawa would be the next Cruiserweight champ. So this is where they kind of answered my suspicion. I was thinking, man, maybe Akira's going to get a main roster push here, but no. It's just Titus Brand is essentially just trying to buy someone in the Cruiserweight division. So I guess that's not happening. This was kind of a nothing segment, honestly. It was just a way to build up an eventual match between Akira Tozawa and Neville. So at least we are getting a new match. It's not going to be Austin Aries and Neville for the millionth time. We are going to get something new. I do like that Akira Tozawa is the one that they're pushing a little bit here because he is very good in the ring. So yeah, I'm a little excited to see where this goes. And I imagine this match will take place on the next pay-per-view. We then get a backstage segment with Sheamus and Cesaro. This was pretty short. They end up just talking about the match that they're going to have with the Hardys tonight. They bring up the Hardys' book, Exist to Inspire, and they start making fun of it. Then they say they're going to force them to write a sequel and call it Exist to Retire, which I thought was a pretty funny line. But that was pretty much it for that backstage segment. We come back and we have Gallows and Anderson in the ring, so I'm starting to think, okay, maybe this is where we'll start to get an answer for the Enzo and Cass attacks finally. They show a highlight from last week where Big Show came and helped Enzo. We were expecting here to get a Enzo and Cass, Gallows and Anderson match. That's what they sort of teased. But when Enzo and Cass's music hits, no one comes out. And immediately I'm thinking, okay, another attack has taken place. And it has. And it's on Cass again this time. So Cass is backstage. Enzo rushes to him. There's a ref or a medic there too. Cass ends up saying that he took one shot to the back of the head, and that was it. He says it was the hardest shot he's ever taken. So immediately I'm thinking, who delivers one, solid punch and knocks someone out all the time? Well, that would be the Big Show. So they are subtly hinting that it's the Big Show now, especially because of last week as well, and a little bit later on in this show, they do a little tease for the Big Show as well. So anyway, Gallows and Anderson go on to call them nerds for getting a little bump on their heads. There's this awkward moment where Gallows goes for a too sweet and Anderson doesn't reciprocate it for a very long time. Anderson is kind of like, watching the crowd. He doesn't realize that he's going for a too sweet. It's almost like someone, asking, like going for a high five and no one sees you and your hand is just up there, looking awkward. That's essentially what this was. Eventually he did give him the too sweet back, but it was very awkward. Enzo and Cass do come out to the ring, but Cass is obviously injured. Refs are trying to hold him back, telling him he shouldn't go to the ring, but he insists. Cass starts off hot, but he's still showing signs of injury. He's really selling his head injury, he's losing his balance, but he's still getting offense off on Anderson. He ends up hitting the Empire Elbow, then as he gets up from it, he falls over, just completely losing his balance. Cass then just stumbles to the outside of the ring, but Enzo tags himself in. Enzo starts getting his ass kicked immediately, and Cass is on the outside, just injured. He's out cold. Enzo eats the Magic Killer and gets pinned, so Gallows and Anderson do win this match. But then after the match, Gallows and Anderson pick up Enzo again to give him another Magic Killer, but then we hear the Big Show's music. He comes out to save Enzo. Gallows and Anderson run away. Big Show gets to the ring to help Enzo up and then kind of hugs him. But as soon as this is happening, Big Cass finally gets up from his injury to the outside, and he's seeing Big Show and Enzo being buddy-buddy in the middle of the ring. Cass kind of has this look on his face like he doesn't trust the Big Show, and it almost looked like he was about to attack the Big Show. However, he doesn't, and then the Big Show just heads back to the locker room. So, again, we got no answers here for the Enzo and Cass attack angle, so that is super disappointing. That was one of our questions heading into tonight's show, and they really didn't deliver on that. I said, last week, and I've said it tonight on this show, I don't want them to drag this out because the longer it drags, the less likely the payoff will be worth it. And it's starting to be built up too big at this point. So I'm only feeling like I'm going to be disappointed once they finally do reveal whoever it is. But the one thing to note here is that, when Big Cass and, I should say the Big Show and Enzo are kind of in the ring being buddy-buddy, Cass has that look on his face like he's being cheated on or something. So they are teasing a little bit of something here, and we'll answer a little bit more about that in a second. We get an R-Truth promo, just kind of battling Goldust's earlier promo in the show. Truth says that he remembers how Goldust stabbed him in the back. He's mad as hell and ain't going to take it anymore. He tells Goldust that he is going to get got. Again, not excited for this match. I just wish they would do it and get it over with so we can move on with, Goldust as a heel or whatever they're going to do. Then we get Big Show backstage. He is confronted by Enzo. Enzo comes up to him and starts thanking him for saving him for the second time in a row. Enzo says Cass said it only took one blow to knock him out, saying that basically the only person that could do that to a guy as big as Cass is the Big Show. Big Show obviously, not happy about this. He goes on to say that he has one word to describe his partner, and he will spell it out for him. He spells out soft, calling Big Cass soft. So what I'm starting to think here is that we're going to get a Big Show versus Cass feud incoming. That's sort of in line with what Vince likes to do. He loves those big guy versus big guy matches, and obviously those two guys are both 7 feet tall, and they're both big, badass dudes, so, we aren't going to have Braun for a little while longer, so maybe this is kind of the temporary big guy feud so that Vince is happy. I don't know, we'll see. But they definitely are teasing that here. We then get a Joe interview backstage. He ends up saying that Paul and Brock are playing right into his strategy. He says that Paul was a messenger, trying to show that Brock did not sweat him, so he sent that messenger home with wounds that he will inflict to his master, obviously referring to Brock. Then he says that Brock started off the show tonight letting everyone know that this is his house, so he came down to the ring and let him feel the man that he is going to battle with. He says that in 4 weeks, Brock Lesnar will walk to the ring, he will look him in the eye, put him in the coquina clutch, and become the new Universal Champion. Super strong promo from Joe here. Again, he's one of the best of all time on the mic, man. He is just on fire right now. WWE has to get him on TV more. The Miz was all over this show tonight. I want a show like that, but for Joe. I want him to be all over the show where he's giving us mic time and giving us more promos, because obviously this is the hottest feud right now in the WWE, Joe versus Brock, and they should really lean into that more. I don't want them to, overplay it. I don't want them to, make us feel sick of these guys already, but I think they could give us a little bit more and still keep that hype going. So, again, man, Joe is just fucking awesome on the mic. Anytime I get a segment with him in it, it's going to be good. So we head into the main event for tonight. It is going to be that 2 out of 3 falls match between Sheamus and Cesaro and the Hardy Boys. Like I said, I'm sick of seeing this match. I wasn't super excited for this. And gladly, this was a pretty quick match. And, I guess, unfortunately, this match ended in such a way that was pretty shitty for everyone and made it feel like a big giant waste of time, similar to how all of their matches have been up to this point. Sheamus goes for a brogue kick right off the bat, but Matt is able to dodge it. Matt gets the tag to Jeff, and they deliver poetry in motion to Sheamus. Hardys go for a pin, but Sheamus kicks out. They're really going early. They're going for that first pin really early. The commentators are basically saying that first pin is the one that matters. Jeff goes for a twist of fate, but he's sent to the ring post by Sheamus. Jeff then lifts himself up at the post and is expecting Sheamus to go underneath him. That spot that they do where they lift themselves up and the other guy goes underneath and they reverse it. Well, this time, when Jeff lifts himself up, Sheamus delivers a brogue kick to Jeff's face. Jeff just immediately hits the ground. Sheamus goes for the pin on Jeff. He's out cold. 1, 2, 3. First pin goes to Sheamus and Cesaro. Very quick, so they start off the 2 out of 3 falls match 1-0. We come back from break and we have "You Look Stupid" chants directed at Sheamus. Sheamus has Jeff in a chokehold on the mat, but Jeff is able to break out and kick Sheamus all the way to the outside of the ring. Sheamus went flying after this kick. Jeff then sets up for the hot tag to Matt, but of course Sheamus gets back into the ring and stops it. Jeff then eventually tags in Matt, and then Sheamus tags in Cesaro. We get huge delete chants as Matt rams Cesaro's face into each of the 3 pads on the turnbuckle. This is a pretty cool spot. He basically just takes Cesaro's head, mashes it into the top one a bunch of times, the middle one, and then the bottom one. What is kind of funny here, though, is there's a little bit of a botch. I don't know if a lot of people noticed this, though. Matt is actually, he stops mashing Cesaro's head into the post and takes his hand off of Cesaro's head and kind of backs away to celebrate a little bit. But Cesaro continues to slam his own head into the apron. So obviously a little bit of a botch there, but not too noticeable. Matt then hits a tornado DDT from the top rope onto Cesaro. Matt then hits a twist of fate on Cesaro after slamming Sheamus into the ring apron. Matt gets a pin on Cesaro, and it's 1, 2, 3. We now have a 1-1 score, so obviously the next pin will win this match. Matt tries to get another pin off that last twist of fate, but no dice. Cesaro kicks out this time. Matt goes to the top, jumps down, and Cesaro hits a huge uppercut to Matt. Cesaro then tags in Sheamus, who knocks Jeff off of the apron, and then he starts attacking Matt. He hits a huge knee to Matt, but Matt is able to kick out. Really nice knees by Sheamus here, looking really vicious. It was almost like a brogue kick, but he hit him with the knee instead of the boot this time. Really cool spot. Cesaro and Sheamus then double team Matt, but Jeff is able to break up this pin. Cesaro then sets up for the Gotch neutralizer, but Matt counters, and then Cesaro reverses Matt's counter into a sharpshooter. Really cool sequence there by those two guys. That was probably the highlight of this match. Matt struggles to get to the bottom rope, but eventually does and breaks it up. Matt gets the tag to Jeff. Sheamus is legal now as well. Jeff then hits a series of clotheslines into an inverted atomic drop. Jeff gets a near fall on Sheamus, but then Cesaro breaks it up at the last second. Cesaro hits an uppercut onto Jeff from the outside. Sheamus goes for a pin, but then he kicks out. Sheamus flies shoulder first into the post, which, of course, is the WWE's favorite spot. I think we only got one of those tonight, though, so good on them for kind of minimizing their favorite spot. Jeff realizes, Sheamus is in pain after going into the post, and he heads to the top rope to capitalize off of Sheamus's mistake. Jeff goes for the Swanton Bomb. He hits it. 1, 2, Cesaro pulls Sheamus from the ring. This is a very close, believable near fall here. I kind of thought after the Swanton Bomb that, oh shit, maybe they're going to put the titles back on the Hardys. Matt Hardy did just have that baby. That's kind of why he was off TV for a little bit. And now that he's back, I was kind of thinking, well, maybe, since he is back and he's not, taking a lot of time off here, maybe they'll just put the titles back on them. Maybe this was just a temporary thing, but no. Both guys start fighting each other on the outside of the ring. They're throwing each other into the barricades. The official, meanwhile, has been counting this whole time. So we have all four guys on the outside of the ring brawling, and the official is counting the entire time. So obviously we know where this is going. He then gets to 10 and then calls for the bell. The fight continues. These four guys are just throwing each other around all over the place. Then Jeff, like a madman, goes to the top post and dives onto Sheamus and Cesaro from the outside. Obviously, the match is over at this point. There's not going to be a title swap because you cannot have a title swap on a count out. But you could tell that the Hardys were really trying to end this match with something that, the people could go home happy with. They tried to do a bunch of, sort of big spots at the end to make it more epic than just that shitty count-out finish that we just had. But it really didn't work for me, man. So, in the end, this match just ended shittily and kind of... Raw just kind of ended on a flat note here. Really stupid ending. I think they could have just had Sheamus and Cesaro win. They could have done something, dirty, like use the ropes to pin someone or something like that so it wasn't clean. Obviously the belts wouldn't have changed hands even if Matt and Jeff got into the ring, but it's kind of stupid to end this show this way and send everyone home kind of on a flat note. I would have just let Cesaro and Sheamus get the win here. I don't know why they didn't do it, but yeah, stupid ending. But yeah, man, that was the episode of Raw. Overall thoughts on tonight's show. I like this show better than last week. After looking at some of the comments online, it seems like a lot of people like last week's Raw, which I was surprised by. And the sentiment I'm getting from this week is that people didn't really like this one. So I don't know if I'm just off base with everything I'm saying or if I'm just, not on the same wavelength as everyone else. But I kind of like this show, man. It was packed to the brim with stuff on this show. I think it had a little bit for everyone. If you wanted Joe versus Brock, you got that right off the bat. If you wanted to see, Emma, or if you wanted to see a tease between Sasha and Alexa, you got that. There was a title match, even though it ended shittily. We still got that. So I think it had a little bit for everybody, and this was a really, really packed show. Obviously, we had no Roman and no Balor tonight, so if you're fans of those guys, there probably wasn't much for you. But I don't think that they were necessarily missed on this particular show. I felt like they filled the 3 hours decently well. But again, it was a very long show, as Raw is every week, being a 3-hour show. I was a little worried that Balor wasn't on this show. I want to see him on TV as much as possible, but obviously he is in Asia doing some stuff over there. So hopefully we can get him back to the States and get him doing something on TV immediately. I would have more, I know we're going with Seth versus Bray probably at Great Balls of Fire, but me personally, I would have enjoyed to see Balor versus Bray a lot more. Even though I think Bray is a dead character and will lose no matter who he's facing, I would be more interested in a Balor match than I would a Seth Bray match. So, obviously, like I said, man, we got Joe and Brock right off the top of the show, and it was fucking awesome. It left me wanting even more. Obviously we're going to have to wait about 4 weeks for this match, and that wait is going to be excruciating. I want that match right now, and tonight got me even more hyped than it did last week. So we are obviously going to get more build for this match, so I'm excited to see that. But just seeing these two badass fucking monsters in the ring together is such a treat. I just can't wait till we get this match. Tonight really proved how intense it's going to be. It's going to be similar to a UFC fight. It has a legit fight feel to it, and that is what I'm most excited for. Obviously, I think Elias versus Dean was actually okay tonight. Miz coming out for the interruption was pretty typical. I think we all saw that coming, but it ended up playing into a bigger part of the show later on, which is what I really liked. I liked how they took one story element and kind of continually used it throughout the show. That's something that the WWE really doesn't do a whole lot often, and I think they would benefit a lot from that by, teasing a little something and having it resolved by the end of the show to keep people, wanting to watch. When you're watching a regular TV show, you don't watch it for one little thing and then that little thing doesn't get resolved till the, season finale. It's usually builds up and then you get a payoff eventually, right? That's what I think the WWE should do a little bit more here. They should find ways to get small payoffs to keep us interested for the entire 3-hour block rather than dragging shit out like they have been doing lately. I do like the whole Miz being paranoid at everything and, thinking everyone is Dean Ambrose. So that's kind of a cool angle, even though I'm tired of seeing Miz and Ambrose. But like I said, man, I think we're going to get that triple threat at Great Balls of Fire. That you can mark that down. I'm pretty sure that's going to happen. The women's match that we got tonight was super sloppy. It was kind of an incoherent mess. But I think, I think the tease that we all wanted, which was Sasha and Alexa, we all got that at the end. Emma coming back tonight was obviously a nice surprise, so I'll be interested to see where they go with her going forward. But like I said, man, I don't want to see her messing around with Dana Brooke. Dana Brooke just is not on Emma's level, man. Emma is good. She needs to be in the spotlight, man, just like she said tonight. She is way better than most of the women on the roster. So maybe they'll get her a match with Nia Jax, if we are actually going to finally get Sasha versus Alexa. So we'll see. A couple of the questions that we had tonight, were we going to get answers for Enzo and Cass, or were we going to get answers for Corey and Kurt? And we got no answers, man. Just more advancement or even non-advancement, however you want to look at it. Nothing really happened between these guys. I know they teased a little bit more, saying that the Big Show might have done it. We know that Cass got attacked again, and it was one shot, But I just, I'm really worried that the reveal is going to fall flat, and they're building this thing up to be something more than it probably is. We got no real mention of the Corey and Kurt thing tonight. There was a slight mention in that Angle and Miz backstage segment that we got, but that was it, man. Nothing else. No more teases for that whatsoever. And, I really want to know what's up with that. That's probably the most... that angle has the most mystery surrounding it right now, and we got nothing tonight for it. So, I want to know what's up. I know everyone else wants to know what's going on with that. Even if it probably is just Stephanie coming back, which everyone is going to be pissed about, but, they should have advanced that a little bit more, or at least gave us an answer for that. The whole Seth versus Bray thing, the match for Great Balls of Fire didn't officially get made tonight, but I think that's obviously where they're going to go. Originally I was thinking, okay, maybe it's Seth versus Bray in the main event, but no, they didn't even have a match tonight, so they're obviously building up for something bigger for those guys, and it's going to probably be at Great Balls of Fire. The promo for Bray, man, was just fucking all over the place. It was just your typical Bray Wyatt promo, and like I said earlier, I don't really understand this feud, why we're getting it, but I guess that will be a match at a pay-per-view, so I don't really have much to say about it yet. We'll see where they go as far as the build goes, but I honestly wish it was Balor versus Bray and not Seth versus Bray, because I think Balor just has more of a fresh feel to him right now. It's not someone that we get to see a whole lot, and we have definitely seen Seth versus Bray plenty of times before, so I would like something that feels more fresh rather than doing the same old stuff. And then finally, man, the main event, very shitty ending. I mean, it was a decent match, but again, I'm just sick of seeing these two teams together, man. And I just hope that we can get a new tag team going on and we can separate these guys for a little bit. So, as of right now, it doesn't look like that's going to happen. It looks like this might last until SummerSlam, which, good fucking God, I cannot take it anymore. But we'll see, man. If that's really the direction they're going with these tag titles, they are just dead right now, man. They have got to find some new teams to go after them and get us more excited, because I cannot stand to see these two teams fight anymore, even though we are going to get that again at Great Balls of Fire. So for a show tonight that had to go against the NBA Finals, which congratulations to the Golden State Warriors, Kevin Durant getting his first ring, and they had to go against E3, which is the gaming press conferences. I'm surprised that this wasn't just a throwaway show. It did have some horrible segments. That Cedric and Dar segment was really, really bad. I'm still hearing Alicia Fox screaming in my mind. But outside of a few bad segments, man, I think this was a decent Raw, and I enjoyed it personally more than last week. So, yeah, guys, that was the episode of Raw from June 12th, 2017, out of Louisiana in the Cajun Dome. Again, guys, if you enjoyed this, please hit subscribe on our YouTube page. We're building up more subscribers over there, and I really, really appreciate anyone that is able to check out this show and listen to it. I know we're just starting and we're getting things going off the ground, but anyone that subscribes, man, you're such a huge help, and we really, really appreciate that. You can, of course, always follow us on Twitter at Ramble_cast. We are also on Podbean. Go check us out over there, royalrambleradio.podbean.com. You can download the Podbean app and find us and listen to us wherever you are. We are on SoundCloud, of course, soundcloud.com/royal-ramble-radio. And if you have any emails or you want to send some questions into the show and have those answered, send them over to royalrambleradio@gmail.com. So, yeah, guys, that was the episode of Raw for June 12th, 2017. This has been the Royal Ramble Podcast. I am your host, Zach Stevens, and I am out. Peace.